The Tales series has come a very long way since the debut of Tales of Phantasia for the Super Nintendo in 1995. That game was very well known for pushing the boundaries of what the Super Nintendo could do with the incorporation of voice acting, as well as a vocal opening theme, and the creation of that game also led to some developers splitting off to become Tri-Ace who would go on and develop Star Ocean. But that's a story for another time. Fast forward almost 26 years later, and we have the latest installment in the series with Tales of Arise. You do not need to have any prior knowledge of games in the Tales series to fully enjoy it, though knowing some of the other games is a benefit. This is coming from someone who hasn't played a Tales game chronologically after Tales of Grace's F for the PlayStation 3. Just as a heads up, this review will contain some minor plot spoilers as well as visual spoilers, both out of context, so if you don't want to see anything out of context and you're just after a summary, feel free to skip to the opinion. Tales of Arise is set in the world of Dana. 300 years ago, the planet was invaded by the people of planet Rena. The Renans were much more advanced, and the Danans were quickly conquered and made to serve the Renans, with the land divided into 5 realms ruled over by a Renan Lord. Every 10 years, the Lords compete in the crown contest to determine which one of them becomes the next sovereign of the Renans. The game puts you in the shoes of Alphen, a Danan man with no recollection of his past, and in the beginning of the game wears an iron mask. As well as having no memories of his past, Alphen also cannot experience pain. Alphen lives in the Calaglia region and lives his life slaving away alongside the other Danans. His life gets turned upside down when he gets involved with an incident involving a Danan resistance group and he meets Shion, a Renan woman with a curse that hurts anyone that makes physical contact with her. While escaping from Renan forces, Alphen is able to pull a flaming sword out of a Master Core that Shion possesses. Shion's goal is to defeat the Renan Lords and collect their Master Cores so that she can remove her curse, and what better person for her to team up with than a man who doesn't feel pain? After joining the resistance group and defeating the First Lord, Alphen, Shion and Zephyr, the leader of the resistance group, embark on a journey to defeat the Lords to free Dana and remove Shion's curse. Along the way they'll team up with new friends and experience an adventure of a lifetime. But is this game any good? Find out in The Good. I really like the game's visuals and settings. Tales of Arise uses the Unreal 4 engine as opposed to previous games in the series using an in-house engine. This has resulted in some really beautiful looking areas as well as higher quality character animations and models. The game features a number of different locations, each very different from one another, as well as a day and night system, and I feel that this shows off the game's graphics very well. As you progress through the game, you can also unlock outfits, accessories and colour variations to default outfits. These remain equipped onto the characters whether they're in a cutscene, battle or on the field, which is a nice change from seeing characters change back to a default outfit for a cutscene in a lot of other games. This of course does not apply to certain animated scenes as they aren't in-engine scenes. The only thing I feel which could have made this better is HDR support. While I understand not everyone has access to it, I feel that HDR support would have done wonders to showcase the scenery and effects this game have to offer. The visuals, combined with music by veteran Motoi Sakuraba, really makes the game a treat not only for the eyes but for the ears as well. I've always enjoyed his work, and a lot of my favourite JRPGs tends to have him as the or one of the composers for them. I really enjoyed the gameplay for Tales of Arise. The game's battle system is yet another variation of the Tales series' linear motion battle system. This allows characters to roam around freely in an area during battle to attack enemies or provide support. The game does focus on countering and evading enemies, something inspired by Tales of Grace's, which is good because I really liked how that game handled its battles too. Multiplayer, which has been a feature in some Tales games where other players can control other members of your party in battle, has been removed in favour of introducing the boost strike meter. This allows you to call upon one of your other party members to support you as you fight. Each character's boost strikes have their own advantages, such as using Alphen to stun most enemies briefly, Shion to ground flying enemies, Rinwell using her abilities to seal enemies trying to cast spells and even use those spells against them, or Law breaking the guard of defensive enemies, to name a few. As you inflict damage to your enemies, another gauge starts filling, and once filled you can activate the boost gauge to launch devastating combination attacks with a team of 2 of any of your party members depending on which button you press. The boost strike feature isn't restricted to your active party members as well, so if you need to use the ability of one of your support characters, you can. Outside of battle, there are other activities you can engage in, such as taking and completing side quests from people asking for help, searching the world for Danan owls to unlock accessories and outfit colours, to finding several areas where you can go fishing at to catch a variety of different fish. There is also an emphasis on cure points. Cure points is a pool of points that's used up whenever any restorative arts are used, as well as certain map actions that can be performed by members of your party. Cure points can be restored through cooking whenever your party rests, items or certain abilities, and the max amount can be increased by defeating certain powerful enemies. Depending on who you have for cooking duty and what you cook, you can gain a variety of different effects with boosted elements to them. As you get stronger in the game, you also earn skill points which can be invested in a skill tree to enhance some abilities, learn new ones, and ultimately increase your stats further. Instead of buying weapons, you collect materials from gathering points and beating enemies to craft weapons as well as create accessories with bonus effects. There was a lot to do in the game which kept me busy from start to finish, and even grinding levels in the game didn't feel like too much of a chore. The game's story and characters I feel really made the game too. The game features some excellent character development, as each character has their own issues that they tackle throughout the game, and how they overcome them and grow compared to when you first meet them is a testament to how well I thought the characters were written. The game features over 300 skits, which are short scenes where characters interact with each other. Sometimes they talk about the problem at hand, other times they just talk about random things, and watching these skits really made me feel like I was getting to know these characters a little more personally. Skits have been a staple in the Tales series for a long time, but the way that this game presents them differs a lot from the traditional skits where it was just character portraits talking to one another. This makes excellent use of the character models, and I think this is the way they should be going forward. Combine this with boost strikes in battle and it really shows how well the dynamics between your party members work. Some characters might even get angry if another character falls in battle, which is a nice touch since I don't see that too often. The game's story does have a common theme going for it of cooperation and coexistence, and I found it engaging and it kept me interested throughout my playthrough. But with all good things, we have bad things, and we're going to look at those in the bad. While it's not uncommon to see role-playing games recycle enemies by simply recolouring them or introducing powerful boss enemies as regular enemies, I found that most of the enemies and bosses I've come across I will probably encounter a variation of again as an enemy or boss at some point later on. The strategy to beating them hasn't really changed too much, it's just that they hit harder and they have more health. Enemies and bosses have a pattern which can be exploited through timed usage of your support characters through their boost strikes, and if you figure it out, I found a lot of battles to be very manageable even on higher difficulties. Boss fights or battles against special enemies follow the formula of depleting them down to half health before prompting a combination attack before the enemy gets into a mode where they have super armor and perform different types of attacks. Then once you knock them down to 1 health, for the most part, you can finish them off using a combination attack. I also found the description for using certain mystic arts to be a little misleading as well. A mystic art is a super powerful attack your characters can use when they enter into a limit break type mode with a neat cinematic. Each character has 2 mystic arts that they can learn, and while the first one can be done by holding down 2 buttons when performing an art or skill, the second has a more misleading activation. My comprehension of it was that it required you to hold the 2 buttons down during an art with a combo of 5 or more. Instead, it is actually to be activated by holding down the 2 buttons after using and landing 5 different arts. Seeing them was worth it though. Enemies I felt were quite limited. You were pretty much limited to a handful of enemy types that you'll probably find in the next area of the game, but different coloured. The only other issue with the game, which to be fair I sort of ignored, was how it handled its DLC. While Namco Bandai offering extra items, levels and guild for a Tales game as DLC isn't a new thing, the way it's marketed is a little concerning. When your characters set up camp, there's an option for DLC with a little header with some news available. The news at the time of this review was on the collaboration outfits, which still showed despite me having it as part of the game's Ultimate Edition. There's also an option for DLC in the settings too, and while it doesn't bother me, I have heard accounts on how it can be a nuisance for people and a little worrying, given that some skills are locked behind said outfits. Of course with DLC, this is all optional so you don't have to buy them, and the bonuses you get from the deluxe and ultimate editions of the game can be turned off or simply not used. But the constant pestering of news when the game started up or when you set up camp, I can see being an annoyance. This pretty much wraps up my issues with the game, so I think it's about time for the opinion. I had a lot of fun playing Tales of Arise. It's not my favourite in the series, but it ranks pretty high up there. The game's visuals and music were amazing, and I still feel that for the visuals it could have done with HDR capabilities. The game was solid with lots to do, easy to understand and satisfying to master, as well as an excellent story and characters which play well with the dynamics of the gameplay. The only issues I really had were enemy variety being a little limited and predictable, as well as how the game handles its DLC. If you're a fan of JRPGs, and especially the Tales series, then this is a solid title in the series and I definitely recommend picking it up. So with that, it's time for my rating. I would give Tales of Arise Hoodle out of 10. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to check out some of our other videos and subscribe for more. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram and our Facebook page. Once again, thank you for watching.